Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do.
My name is Asantha. I am the co-founder of a company called PaySauce. We are based here in New Zealand, and I'm also the CEO of the company.
Awesome. So what is PaySauce exactly, and how did you get the idea for it?
PaySauce is a payroll mechanism for particularly small businesses. So if you look at a business, people go into business because they've got an idea, they see a need, and then they need to employ people. And as soon as you start employing your first person, you need to pay them. And that becomes a journey of its own. And a lot of payroll software has been written for larger organizations. As technology has become more available, there is an increasing number of people with 3, 4, 5 employees that are starting up, and that's the market we cater to. That's where the idea came from. I have been in the payroll space now for well over 20 years. So I'm an accountant by trade. There was an opportunity that came up in the digital payroll space, and I've been there for the last 20 odd years. So it's a long time.
So in terms of PaySauce, right? I mean, obviously, as you mentioned, other providers in the space. So what's a good fit? Like you mentioned, 3, 4 employees, maybe less. Do you also look at, revenue, salaries? Because, how does the fee structure exactly work if I'm going to onboard with your platform?
Sure. What we charge is a subscription based on the number of employees that have used the solution. So essentially, we pick up the hours via a digital timesheet, or if they're a salary, it's a standard payment each pay period. And so we're looking at, on average, a company would spend $25 to $30 a month. And the beauty of what we do is not only do we calculate the payroll, but we actually pay the employee their pay. We pay the tax department their component of the tax that we've deducted at source, and we file the return. So business owners just simply close their pay, and we take care of all of the back office requirements from there. So it's a convenience thing. It is a significant advantage for a busy business owner. Rather than do 3 different things, we take care of all of that in the one place.
That's awesome. And so I see this one of your niche on your website that you serve farmers. So is that a good portion of your business, or what does that breakdown look like in terms of different verticals?
Yeah, look, we got into farming because I've always been a believer in finding a niche or a market where you can become the dominant player. And it's a lesson I learned from a book called Crossing the Chasm. It's an old book, but a really, really relevant book even today. And we found that it was an underserved market, but also more importantly, the word of mouth factor is very, very strong.
So yeah, you were talking about finding the niche, reading Crossing the Chasm.
Yeah. That's right. So we found that in farming, it's a rural client base, and it's a community-based society where people talk to each other. So if you provide an exceptional service to a customer, they will tell not only their neighboring farmer, but they will tell their doctor, they will tell their florist, they will tell all of the business people they know in their circle. So we've become really strong in farming initially, but then that has spread to us being strong rurally. So our largest market in New Zealand is in Invercargill, which is a farming town in the bottom of the South Island. It's not one of the main centers, but that's where a lot of our clients are based because that's where we started from. So in New Zealand, if you look at farmers who employ, 2 out of 3 farmers who employ use our solution to pay their people.
Amazing.
Yeah, so that's the reason for us starting in farming, but we've now sort of branched into the trades, plumbers, electricians, retail, hospitality, across the board.
So obviously, that you focus currently on the New Zealand market. So what is kind of your vision? Do you just want to stay focused on New Zealand and capture the whole country? Or do you want to expand, obviously I'm here in the US, Australia is nearby. What is your vision for PaySauce?
When we started this business, we had a very, very clear business goal of becoming the payroll solution for micro businesses globally. So New Zealand is our market where we started off, and we've become, a significant player in that market in New Zealand. We acquired a business a couple of years back that gave us a small footprint in Australia and in the Pacific Islands. But we know that there is, for a quirk of history, I'm not sure why it is, but New Zealand technology, particularly around the payroll space, is world leading. We are further along the curve than most other markets. I was in the US and I toured some of the Midwest and spoke to a number of farmers, and we recognized that there is a significant opportunity for us in that space because, again, the main incumbent providers are really not interested in that micro business market. It's a hard market to serve, but if you are able to do it at scale, you are then able to build a viable business off that. So just in New Zealand, we now handle over $200 million of payroll each month. So we physically move $200 million from our employer accounts to our employee accounts each month. And that's what we've been able to do in a market of 5 million people.
Wow.
Which is total population.
Yeah. So I guess just to expand on that, right? Because you were saying that you're in the Midwest, right? I'm from Chicago, obviously. I live in Texas, so lots of farms. Went to college in Wisconsin, stuff. And I'm very familiar with that space. So yes, 100% there is that opportunity. So I guess what is your vision? Like, do you want to go for that, this year, next year? I mean, where do you, or when and how do you kind of see yourself going into really expanding, globally? And let's just say here in the States, because we obviously are a huge market.
Yes. So in order to do that, one of the challenges in payroll historically is you'll find that there will be a dominant payroll provider in Chicago. Because payroll has become very specific to a legislation or a territory. So each state will have 2 or 3 key players, and there are no global providers of payroll in that small business space for that reason. It's a really hard technology challenge to have a single payroll solution that can be spun up in multi-jurisdictions. So otherwise you end up with a tangled mess of supporting 20 different territories, running 20 different backends with 20 different legislative requirements. And that's an absolute nightmare. So one of the pieces of work that we've been doing is how can we create a single payroll solution that we can easily spin up in any territory. So when I was in the States, we experimented with 5 states. We were based in Nebraska. We talked to a bunch of farmers in Nebraska, in Iowa, in states like that. And we found that if we can solve that problem, and that's what we've been working on for the last 2 years, and we'll be rolling that technology out into the first 4 territories this year, which will allow us to prove that we can land and expand very, very quickly without having to do a lot of work setting up and then managing that. So it's the holy grail of payroll to have a multi-jurisdictional single solution. We believe, that's what we set out to crack, and we think that, we've got a really good opportunity to do that.
Awesome.
The answer to your question is that in the next 12 to 18 months, we'll be able to look at markets, way beyond the Asia Pacific region that we're looking at now.
So in terms of the US, right, I mean, is the biggest bottleneck just, as you say, every state has different regulation, but is it more so like the different tax policies? Because obviously in Texas, we don't have state income tax. Other states have. So is that more of what it is, or is it more, complicated than that?
It is. The traditional approach has been to bake all of that local complexity into the payroll. So which means that it becomes really hard for a Chicago-based payroll to set up in San Francisco, right? And what we believe that the problem that we're solving is the ability to do that really easily by separating out the concerns of payroll and the legislative requirements. That's the secret sauce that that we've been working on.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of these companies that are doing payrolls and like these big players, and like I've used to work for some Fortune 500s and they use like ADP or place. I mean, but it's like that's a behemoth organization. To your point, they don't care about the small businesses per se?
The easiest way to find out whether a payroll company cares about small businesses is if you go to their website, and if you can't work out how much it's going to cost you to run your payroll, then that's a very strong signal that that business is not interested in doing your 3-person payroll. So if you come to our website, you put in 3 people, we'll tell you exactly how much it will cost per month.
That's awesome. No, I think there's a lot of opportunities there. What about, like, do you do, or is that something that you're like kind of looking into as well? Because, for example, for us, the way that we're structured, we have like, a global team, right? And we have people all over the world. So we use kind of like, there's platforms like Deal or Safeguard that do the global payments. Is that something that you see yourself at, or is it really more just like local, in-person, brick and mortar kind of businesses?
Yeah, no, we are definitely interested in that brick and mortar, smaller employer. But also the technology we are building is that if we can provide you with a solution, let's say wherever you're based, that you can have a single payroll system that you can run multiple jurisdictions on, is something that we intend to offer as well. And you touched on something really, really important. The traditional approach to payroll has been the payroll business will calculate how much you need to pay your people, and then it's up to you to pay your people. We believe that you can actually provide the payments as part of that solution. So other than the employer of record businesses like Deal that do the payments as part of the solution, if you look at your traditional payroll provider in your market, they expect you to then take your banking file, upload that internet banking, or somehow pay your people. We think that paying your people should be part of the solution we offer our customers.
No, it's awesome. So obviously, you've been doing this for some time, and, you acquired a company, you're expanding now in the US. So if you could go back in time to before you got started, what is the one biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew?
It's a cliche to say this, but it always takes longer than you ever anticipate. We spent the first 7 years of our business in pursuit of revenue. We grew our business rapidly, and we wanted to get to break even as soon as we can. In doing that, we took on businesses of all sizes. So, as I said at the start, our mission is micro businesses. We signed up clients with 100 employees, and their requirements are quite different. And we got dragged away from the original vision. And it took us, we sat down 2 years ago and said, look, we're trying to be everything to everybody. We've really got to go back to what we are really good at and where the biggest opportunity is. And so we've doubled down back to saying, look, we'll build only for a business that is a small business, it's a micro business who've got a requirement. So because it takes a lot longer than you think to build we're a subscription-based business that essentially supports the staff that we've got. We are profitable, and we were really cautious as to how much of capital we took in terms of how much of money we raised. And all of that allowed us to get to a sustainable point where now all of that knowledge we've gained over the 8 years has helped us in this rebuild that'll give us the solution to come to Chicago and offer payroll to your friends and neighbors.
Awesome. Well, yeah, that's really good advice, a really cool story, and we're rooting for you. So if somebody watching this wanted to get in contact with you or wanted to find your business, PaySauce, what's the best way, if you can share like your website, social media, best ways to get in contact?
Sure. So we've got all of the social media platforms out there. The website is PaySauce. That's P-A-Y, sauce like tomato sauce. PAYSAUCE.com is our domain. And my email is asantha@paysauce.com, ASANTHA@paysauce.com. I take emails and we publicly disclose that. So
awesome. Well, Asantha, thanks so much for your time today.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course.